This time I'd like to talk about an interesting game. It's really like nothing I've ever played before, at least not in its entirety. I wasn't even sure if I should make this episode because the majority of this game isn't even horror and it's almost too popular, which isn't really what I do on this channel. But after realizing how interesting the main character and the game itself is, I just had to do it. Welcome to Deadly Premonition, Director's Cut. Alright, let's get that collective sigh out of the way. This is one of these games that got a poor port to the PC 3 years after the fact. Yeah, I know. I'll tell you all about it, just you wait. I actually modified the way I record and visually modded the game multiple times, which is why colors and quality may fluctuate throughout this video. Sometimes it will run at 30 FPS or less, sometimes it will run on 60 FPS. Just like this port doesn't give a shit and works whenever it wants to, I will do the same. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Deadly Premonition was originally developed by Japanese studio Axis Games in 2010 as an Xbox 360 exclusive in the US and Europe, and the PS3 in Japan only. They are also known to have created the special edition of Devil May Cry 4? And D4 Dark Dreams Don't Die, I guess. Yeah, I have never heard of these guys before. Well, that's not 100% true, I have actually heard of D4 before. D4 before. They got their game published by Marvelous Entertainment in Japan, Rising Star Games in Europe, and Ignition Entertainment in the US. Another 3 publishers I've never heard before. Despite that, the game has gotten its fair share of media attention and eventually came out for PS3 and PC with the subtitle Director's Cut, which adds a couple of things I'll talk about later. The game begins with the discovery of the body of a woman named Anna in the small town Greenvale. And this is where the game will take place. This intro cutscene was actually one of the things that was added with the director's cut, because people felt like the game was too confusing without it, which is Now I have to censor this, don't I? Can't forget, shooting someone in the head in cold blood is fine, but just let one pair of boobs or other body parts slip and everyone loses their shit. Anyway, after the body is discovered, we get to see an old man telling his granddaughter the story we're about to play, similarly to Midsummer Night. I've never been a fan of this style of storytelling. I always felt like it made the actions of the main character feel less impactful to me, since, you know, it already happened, nothing can change that. But it's nothing I can't live with, it's just a little nitpick. As I was about to say, being confused by the story is justifiable. Just look at what the first part of gameplay looks like.
Could you wait just a little longer? This won't take long.
And now imagine I hadn't told you about the added intro before. Confusing? Check. Weird? Check. Interesting? Hell yeah, it's interesting. I almost wish they hadn't added this new intro. Not only does it take away from the discoveries, but it also makes the intro drag on and on, since the story being told has its own intro cutscene as well, where we can see the main character driving. And this all adds up to about 15 minutes of intro before anything even happens. In fact, the non-voice acted lines are the minority.
It's me.
I want to say there are hours worth of voice acting in this game.
Could you respond?
Wait, what?
What's the matter? Zach, can you hear me? If you can hear me, say something. Zach.
Wait, are you talking to me? Yeah, I'm here.
Good. I thought you went to sleep.
That's right, the main character is talking to us. In this game we play an FBI agent named York who comes to Greenvale in order to solve the murder case. And the very first thing you get to know about him is that he has a split personality he calls Zach, that he talks to and calls his best friend.
Zach, I can't believe the Bureau still can't get me a satellite phone.
Even with other people around. But don't worry, there's more than Zach to York, and that sounded weird, but we will get to that later. In true horror game fashion, our car breaks down in the woods near Greenvale, and finally we get to play. After wandering around a bit and being stopped by strange red plants and a dead dog, we find a generator we have to turn on. So we do that and are greeted by a nice lady who fuels our nightmares, and it's at that point that I realized that the shooting in this game is really messed up. You hold down the space button and then you shoot while clicking left and lock on with the right mouse button. And in addition to that horrible control scheme, you can't even aim where you want to. You are locked in this tiny circle, which makes shooting small specific things really hard. I mean, look at this. I'm trying to shoot this bird's nest here, and there's literally no good angle to shoot this from. I tried this for at least 10 minutes until I realized I could just use a melee weapon instead. This is still a huge problem in this game, but at least you get infinite ammo for the pistol. Which is a thing I only realized after breaking my first melee weapon. But you get such an abundance of melee weapons and ammo that it's not too bad. Anyway, so after we deal with these first few enemies, we discover a unique game mechanic called profiling. This is used to give some sort of objective. Sometimes when it comes up, you will have to find 2 to 4 key items in the area to piece together what happened at the place and advance in the storyline.
Looks like we're being welcomed. Zach, I'll let you handle the meet and greet.
It almost seems like York has some kind of supernatural ability to piece these things together, and this could be supernatural feeling doesn't really go away throughout the whole game. So after walking a bit further, we meet the nemesis of this game. Deadly Premonition's Pyramid Head, if you will. A figure that supposedly appears in Greenvale when it rains to kill innocent people. And here's another part I don't like. QuickTime events. Whenever you meet the Raincoat Killer, it is usually in these QuickTime events. And sometimes there's no way to avoid death unless you already know it's coming. What was I supposed to do there? There is literally nothing I could have done. Not the first time around. Plus the key you have to press changes every time, so you can't even memorize it. I died a total of 7 times in this game, and at least 4 of them were because of these QuickTime events. To be fair though, you usually either only use health, or you get a second chance to dodge attacks, so it's tolerable. So the Raincoat Killer gets away and we're finally outside the woods, and suddenly everything becomes nice and bright again. No more monsters for now. The game calls these segments Otherworld. Huh. I think I've heard that term before in another game. Nah, can't remember. So here we are, welcome to Greenvale. That's right, this is an open world game. And most of the game does take place in this open world rather than the Otherworld area with the monsters. About 7 out of 10 parts of the game aren't even horror, and rather a criminal mystery. In fact, this game is really weirdly paced. Much like my Call of Cthulhu video, it has moments like this. And then a couple of minutes later you'll have this.
Polly, it might help to hear you better if you could sit a little closer.
Oh my, Mr. Morgan, you're embarrassing me. So early in the day, too. I think I'm a little too old for you. And I
Moments like this, and then stuff like this where it's almost comedy.
Zach, this is amazing. Even the taste of her coffee is thrilling, to say the least.
What?
No, nothing. This isn't the cup that Thomas always uses for me, is it?
I'm sorry about that too, then. I just used a cup that was nearby. You have a problem with that?
Problem? Not at all, my dear Emily. The coffee is perfect. Well, okay, taste aside, this cup certainly is perfect.
I
Agent York,
like it. Some of the time it feels lighthearted and even funny, and the next it will hit you in the face. It makes sure you remember that you are chasing a cold-blooded murderer. But it usually gets the emotions right. Well, except for sometimes.
Agent Morgan, I see what happened here.
He hung her from the tree and put on her shoes. He was really enjoying it. Sicko. And he knelt down. And disgusting.
Oh god. Let me tell you, this song, it gets really annoying after listening to it for so long.
Have a vivid imagination.
It's so weird that it actually works, and it is what made me really interested in playing this game when I first saw it on a Twitch stream. Let's get back to the open world for a moment and continue the strange string of gameplay elements. First, you play this really creepy woodsy area with Helen Keller and friends. Then you meet the two sheriffs, and then you are suddenly driving in a car. And look at the bottom right. You have to take gas into account. And that's still not all. You can actually buy and upgrade your cars at the scrapyard. And that's still not all. You have to eat, sleep. You can shave or let your beard grow out. You can change your suit that you have to wash. Check the dynamically changing weather. There's a dart minigame, a racing minigame, a fishing minigame, and a bunch of collectibles. And I'm sure there's a lot of stuff I haven't even found yet. What the hell is going on here? I thought this was a horror game. But no, it's a weird hybrid type of game. To be honest though, the sleep and eating mechanics aren't really necessary. I've never had problems with either of them because you get plenty of space to sleep and eat. Of course there's also the health and stamina bar, which is self-explanatory. Deadly Premonition is so carefully crafted with a lot of attention to detail, especially story-wise, that I couldn't just not talk about what it has to offer in its open world. But sometimes you have to be at a place at a specific time. So let's time really quickly how long 1 minute in this game takes. So let's just round it out and say it's about 20 seconds long. That means for 1 hour to pass, you have to wait 20 in-game minutes. So for a single day to pass, it takes 8 real-time hours. Sure, you do have the option to sleep until the next mission starts, but you can only sleep a minimum of 3 hours. Meaning that if your limit is 2200 to 2300 and it's 2000, you're out of luck. Because if you go to sleep, it's gonna be too late to do the mission. So you gotta go and kill 40 real-time minutes doing whatever until the next mission starts. But this is kind of a nitpick because that's the spare time you get for exploring and doing the tons of side missions this game has to offer. But I wanted to at least mention it. Since the open world is really big, you'll spend a lot of time in your car driving. There are 3 cameras for your car. A cockpit camera, which I prefer because I like immersion in games. and 2 cameras behind the car. Both of them kind of suck though because they don't follow the car well when driving corners, so I picked the cockpit camera for most of the time. The cars even have windshield wipers and turn signals, and since I'm a Euro Truck Simulator fan, I actually used them for a while, but I eventually realized that I was wasting my time and I stopped. Since you're driving so much for pretty much everything, you'd think that there's a map. And there is, but take a look at this map. This is the most you can zoom out in this game. And the map isn't small. Take a look at where I have to drive. You eventually do kind of get a feel where everything is on this map, but they pull this shit right at the beginning. 6,000 yards with this map without knowing anything about it almost made me quit. I'm not kidding. Let's talk about the 2 things I talked about extensively in my Midsummer Night review: music and graphics. Oh great, we're using this music for the segment. That's not gonna be annoying at all. Thanks a lot, future me. So the graphics are kind of bad. They redid the item textures for the Director's Cut edition, but the characters almost look like plastic figures, and there are awkward silences between dialogues where York looks at you like a pedophile. But I guess they are excusable for a later 360 game. What's not excusable is this grey, dirty, washed out tint on the screen. I know this is supposed to be a moody game at points, but where are all the colors? When I switched to sweetfx about 8 hours in, it was a revelation. It does maintain its washed out atmosphere while subtly adding a little bit more color. And since we are already talking about modding, let me remind you that this is a horrible port. The big kicker is that its resolution is locked at 720p. And the only way to unlock that is using a fan patch called dpfix. And only that way I was able to play at 1080p. Using, yet again, another software, you can also get it to run on 60 FPS. But is it really running at 60 FPS? I know, I can't see a difference. Oh, that's awesome. It's a feature. Well, that was just a minor crash, nothing serious, I'm sure. Let me quickly restart the game. Alright, there we go. So as I was saying, the graphics are kind of okay. Sorry about that. I think I'll go ahead and reload here real quick, and there we go. So about the music. The songs are okay. I like some of them. And others, not so much. They repeat a lot, which is meh, but sometimes you'll have to accept it in such a long, relatively low-budget game. The big problem with it is that sometimes the audio levels are all wrong.
I see what happened here.
He hung her from the tree.
Thank God for subtitles. However, I did like how...
I swear you crash on me one more time and I will make you wish you were never born.
So yeah, this game has crashed on me more times than I can count. I'm pretty sure that it has crashed almost every other hour I've played it. My advice is to save whenever you can. Never turn down an opportunity to save your game. The amount of save points that exist almost makes me wonder if they were aware of this problem and that's their way to fix it. Like hundreds of small glasses under a leaking ceiling. Using a third-party software, I was at least able to fix the runtime errors, but Jesus Christ, is it really necessary to install this much crap in order to enjoy the game? Russ Scott once said, quote,
"That's it, the review of this game is over. Union City crosses my bullshit threshold. I'm not gonna play a game that resists me trying to enjoy it this much."
And this one was so close to crossing mine. But the stories and characters kept me interested that I had to push through. The characters especially are super interesting. Even the minor characters have their own walking animations, cars, personalities, secrets and problems. This game is filled to the brim with personality. There's a guy who was supposedly a general, but his uniform shows a sergeant badge, and there's a really elaborate story on why that is, and you can find out in the side quests. Or this guy that only speaks in rhymes.
Mr. Francis York Morgan, I, that is, Mr. Stewart's order is delicious, I should mention. And Mr. Nick Cormack is a genius for creating this perfection. So says Mr. Stewart.
But this video is already getting way too long, so I will only talk about the main character York Morgan, the FBI agent.
That sandwich is that good?
This guy is really something. He's so calm, he's almost badass.
Zach, there goes the civilized world.
I love the way he casually talks while being surrounded by life-threatening things.
Zach, that's a strange coincidence. Look. Red velvet. Just like the place where Anna was murdered.
I was always on the edge of my seat to hear what he had to say next.
No, only to the people he feels comfortable with. He told me. He must feel really comfortable with me.
He must. Is there anyone he hasn't given a sapling to?
Mustard? Okay, I'll just get it from the kitchen then.
No, mustard has nothing to do with it.
One time he even breaks the fourth wall to make a joke about the developer.
The A&G Diner. Wonder what the A and G stand for. Any ideas, Emily?
Nope, I don't know either.
Air and gravity, perhaps? Access and games? Aliens and Godzilla? Who knows?
Now that I think about it, having you see through the eyes of a split personality Zach was really a smart move and works very well. The long drives are sometimes broken up with monologue York has with Zach. Doing these, you find out a lot about York. For example, that he is a huge movie freak.
Okay, Zach. I've been thinking about what movie I'd like to watch next. And finally, I've made a decision.
It's always hard to narrow it down just to one movie. But I've put a lot of thought into this. And I'm sure you'll agree with me. 1975. Directed by Steven Spielberg himself. The grandfather of panic movies. Set in a small town in Massachusetts. That movie made me stay away from the beach for years. I was always afraid that a hand might come floating up. You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah? It's Jaws. The underwater camera work accompanied by that John Williams music. I'd never been that scared by a movie before. But the best thing about it is that it isn't just another panic movie. The mayor who won't close the beach even when there are so many victims. Chief Brody putting the citizens' lives above all else.
Seriously, he talks about movies non-stop. But more importantly, you find out bits and pieces about his past and previous investigations. He even talks to Zack when he hits a headshot.
Amazing. Bullseye. Amazing.
And when he talks with others, his unawareness of social cues is just so cleverly written and delivered.
I've been sheriff here for a long time now, and this is the worst murder I've ever seen.
Our town is a little odd in some ways, but it's usually a peaceful place.
We had our fair share of cases, but just the regular stuff. A high school kid shoplifting from the milk barn, maybe? Or some hot-headed kids fighting, fueled on liquor? Nothing more than that.
Agent York, what kind of cases have you dealt with in the past?
Not much different from those you've just mentioned. The case I was on until last month, well, the guy killed 7 girls in a 3-month period. He sawed their heads off from the neck and took them back to his house. He cleaned the skulls up and used them as utensils in his daily life, to eat from or as a urine cup. He hated women. That was his way of dealing with it. He'd fill skulls with ice, cola, and rum. Then he'd down it in one gulp. For him, that was a holy ritual. The question of his mental state was the pivotal point in the court case.
Oh, man.
I also really like how he gets paid for everything, like shaving. I find it very calming that FBI agents get paid for stuff like that. I really like his voice actor. Jeff Kramer is his name. There was an interview with the game director Swery, voice acted by Jeff Kramer. It was amazing. Mr. Kramer has definitely won me over as a fan. I'll drop the link for the podcast in the description below, where all my sources can be found. Generally speaking though, this game really shines in character interactions. Those are the pinnacle of this game to me. So now that I've extensively talked about what this game is, I'm going to talk about the story of this game as briefly as I can. So spoiler warning, skip to the given time in order to not hear anything further about the story. Alright, my spoiler happy friends, let's talk about the story. After arriving at Greenvale and heading to Emily and George, the latter of which doesn't seem to be too fond of York going as far as even calling him a monarch.
Zach, let's reassess the situation. There are no cavemen here. We're as far forward as the Middle Ages, and we've just met the king.
But as the story goes on, both George and Emily warm up with York, just like real people would. Let's take a step back, however. The first thing you do after your arrival is to take a look at the body and the crime scene. But not without a coffee, because York is...
I am very particular about my coffee.
Okay, yeah. So after going to the hospital and finding these strange red seeds in Anna's mouth, and going to the hospital's other world, we meet Harry Stewart and Michael, who I talked about earlier. And for some reason Michael's just really cool to me. I don't know why, I can't really put my finger on it. I think it's the way the voice actor delivers the lines.
Mr. Francis York Morgan, with each rain our town goes mad. To our disdain, unpreventable. So sad. So says Mr. Stewart.
Thanks for the warning.
It does seem like Harry Stewart knows more than what he pretends to know. Damn, I just now realized that this is one of the only games where I can remember almost every single character's name. And that speaks volumes about the uniqueness of each character. Anyway, it's time to look at the forest the body was found at. York finds evidence that the police conveniently missed when finding the body. Even a photo from the back of the killer with an upside-down peace mark tattoo on his back. We also find out that the actual place where she was killed was the abandoned lumber camp. I'd like to take this opportunity to mention the half-baked stealth system. The problem with this stealth system is that the stamina bar fills up too quickly. It's kinda hard to get past enemies in time. And respawning enemies are something I really don't like. I wish Stuff and Thanks would just stay dead, Carl.
George, it's okay.
York also makes
Just
Emily and
show him
George
and
show
get
him
it
their
over with.
backs to confirm that they aren't the
Are you
killer.
crazy?
Look,
Emily has nothing on her back, but George has a bunch of scars he doesn't want to talk about. Afterwards, we gather all the people in the community center. And this is the first time we really get to see everybody if we haven't met them before. We get to talk to all of them and see their different personalities. I really like this guy.
Were you close to her?
Anna, her smile, so warm. Anna, blonde hair, so bright.
There's a graveyard somewhere in town, Zach.
Honestly, so much work and thought went into every single character. It's really great, I love it. From here on out, we pretty much follow the only lead we have, which is the broken stiletto heel from the crime scene. York calls this mysterious woman Miss Stiletto Heel, and we basically keep going from there. Harry Stewart tells us more about the legend of the Raincoat Killer, and that there are actually 2 Raincoat Killers, an original one and a new one. The original story originated when a couple of, what looks like soldiers, pumped gas into the town that made people aggressive. And one of those was the original Raincoat Killer.
One man dressed in a red raincoat was particularly strong. The attack was killed in an instant.
In fact, we even get to play as the original Raincoat Killer later in the game. And the music, the rain, and everything is just perfect. It gave me shivers. I'm not kidding, this is almost the best part of the game. We get closer and closer to the culprit with each step, with each other world, but he always escapes our grasp. More women start dying. A possible culprit, Nick, is under arrest as a suspect, and during the night, Thomas, the sheriff's assistant, disappears. And it turns out he's been deeper in all of this than he led on to believe. He also really likes squirrels.
This is a Siberian flying squirrel. It's closer to a land-based squirrel. The Siberian flying squirrel is larger than the southern flying squirrel and has a standing tail while the southern has a hanging tail. But we're looking for a southern flying squirrel right now.
And this is where I want to stop talking about the story. I really can't do it justice. This is a living, breathing world where every character is so carefully crafted that I can't possibly talk about the ending and deliver the feeling it deserves. If you have already played the game, then you know exactly why I can't talk about the story any further. So I'll cut it short here and just tell you that the story is very interesting, but also deals with a lot of really dark and twisted shit. If child abuse, suggested rape, psychopathic killers, and more doesn't bother you in a fictional story, go on right ahead and play this. If any of these bother you, I'd suggest skipping it. There's a lot of good stuff here. Story-wise, I'd almost consider it a must-play, but sadly there are some plot holes there too. Atmospherically, it has unbelievably strong moments. There is one moment that I talked about earlier in the spoiler section that is incredibly good. In total, this game has so many great parts, but also some really bad ones. I'd like to summarize this with a comment I found under a Deadly Premonition video made by Totally Not Toby. This game, This crazy, weird, broken, glitchy, stupid game has absolutely no right to come together as any kind of meaningful experience. And yet there is so much love poured into it that somehow it becomes this memorable, fun, and even somewhat touching experience. The soundtrack really binds all of that together. Every song is special and exceptional in its own right, and the soundtrack makes what would have been a goofy, mildly interesting game into something that can actually make you feel something, and certainly make you care more and feel more for the characters than any David Cage game. So glad I was introduced to this game. It's a masterpiece in its own right. He really puts it perfectly. I guess I should have just made a 10-second video showing his comment. Oh well, it's definitely a game I would recommend. For anyone who's into horror and a lot of dark terror. So says Mr. Stewart. My final rating of this game overall would be around 8.5 out of 10. But, because of the port that causes so many problems, I have to subtract at least 2 points, making it a 6.5 out of 10. This port is atrocious. I've never experienced this many crashes in a video game. Deadly Premonition is €25 full price, and I got 24 hours out of it, which is fine by me. But I gotta be honest, I got this for $145, so in the end, there really isn't any reason I should be complaining about anything with such a low price. This game is easily worth full price if you ignore the crashes. But still, if you played Silent Hill 2 and enjoyed it, if you can endure some spare time within a video game, like well-developed characters and storytelling, but can also deal with some plot holes and deal with a cheesy B-movie atmosphere at some places, but also enjoy a creepy atmosphere and are able to deal with dark subject matters, I'd say give it a go. Why would you look at that? A weird mix of genres, isn't that right, Zach?